Hey guys, um, so I decided to do another tag because I love doing tags. I just love rambling, in case you haven't noticed. All right, so how I read tag. This tag was originally from the booktuber EnyasCorner, and as I said, I love doing it because I love doing tags. I love just talking about books. And I got all the questions on my cell phone, so I'm going to be looking away from the screen. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. Extra light. Alright, so the first question is, how do you find out about new books to read? Uh, you know, various different ways. It used to be Goodreads. Goodreads, for a long time, was a big source of finding new authors. But I haven't really been all that active on Goodreads, sort of in and out in the last few years. Mainly now, I guess it's maybe my podcast, Darkness Dwells podcast. We're always talking with writers there, and so I get a lot of recommendations, and the podcasts that I listen to get a lot of recommendations, and lately been getting a lot of recommendations from BookTube. Yeah. All right. So, how did you get into reading? Is question number two. I I got into uh, reading these Vietnam war stories called Vietnam Ground Zero. I talked about that in my BookTube newbie uh, tag, and I just found those books a lot of fun. I was kind of a weird kid. I liked stories about war. I still do, but I was like 12 or 13, maybe 11, and I was reading that back then, and I don't know. All right, question number three. How has your taste in books changed as you've gotten older? I think that's a really good question because I was listening to an interview with Laird Barron on, I think it was This Is Horror podcast, and he mentioned that, he has tremendous respect for authors like Stephen King. He was a big fan of Stephen King, and but he's gotten to the point now where he's comfortable with not reading Stephen King anymore. I found that to be very interesting because uh, I'm sort of in the same boat. I will always probably read Stephen King, but you know what? There always comes a time where I've sort of exhausted reading an author, and I don't know why that happens. I can love an author to death and read them as much as possible, and then suddenly I'm just not reading them anymore, and I don't have any real interest in them. It's not that I think they are terrible suddenly. Excuse me. It's just that I've sort of finished my journey with them, and that's what he explained. But it really resonated with me. So before, when I was younger, and this is how it's different, I would fall in love with a writer and just try to read everything that they put out. I don't do that anymore. I sort of bounce around between writers. I have my favorites still, but there's so many. If I'm reading authors, then they're my favorites. If I start reading an author and I don't finish it because I don't like it or I think it sucks, then they're not a favorite author. So that's sort of changed. Number four is, how often do you buy books? I buy books way too often. It actually hurts. How did you get into booktubing? I basically, like everyone else, I lurked for a long time, and I started my own booktube channel because it's just the type of guy I am. I podcast because I like listening to podcasts. I booktube because I like watching booktube videos. I write because I like reading. I do like movies, but I've never ventured into the whole movie thing. I think that would be just way too difficult. Question number 6. How do you react when you don't like the end of a book? Endings are hard. There's authors like Stephen King who almost never writes a good, satisfying ending. I find, honestly, in all honesty, I don't think very many authors can or do end books very well. The reason for this is because it's hard to wrap everything up. The best part of any story, whether I'm watching a movie or reading a book, for me, is losing myself in the world that the author has created. Because usually that's what happens when we're being introduced to the conflict of the story. When you're being introduced to the characters, you're also being introduced to the world that's been created, and then, of course, the problem comes up, and the characters scramble to solve it, and that's usually the middle part. There can still be some world building there, and obviously character development, but wrapping all the problems up, that's where suddenly we're taken out of the world, in my opinion, and just to solve the issues, and that is actually always the most boring part for me. So I sort of just take it with a grain of salt. If it's a really bad ending, big deal. Question number 7. How often have you taken a sneaky look at the back page of a book to see if it's a happy ending? I never really do that, but one thing I do is I'll skip ahead the end of a chapter or something, or maybe I'll skip ahead. Okay, let's just say a good scenario of where I will look ahead is a character that I like. It's presumed that they're dead. I will skip ahead to see if there's any dialogue by that character again, to see if they're dead or not. If I don't like the character, and fine, they're dead. Goodbye. But if I like the character and I don't want them dead, then that's what I do. It's bad, I know, but I can't help it. Okay. And question number 8 is who do you tag? And I'm not going to tag anyone. Anyone who wants to do it, go right ahead. I got the questions down there in the notes, and that's it for these questions. So that was a lot of fun, despite my technical difficulties, which I will edit out. So until next time, happy reading and keep being creative. Thanks for watching.